Little girl was washing car windows hoping for $5 to save her mom, until a lonely millionaire CEO learned the truth and changed her life forever. 9-year-old Lena, dark-skinned with braided hair wrapped in a fading blue bandana, stood barefoot on the hot pavement of a bustling intersection in Port Haven, a fictional coastal city. Her oversized t-shirt clung to her thin frame, stained with grime. She wasn't begging, she was working. Each windshield she wiped earned her only a few coins, but today she had one goal: earn $5 to buy antibiotics for her bedridden mother, who lay coughing in their one-room shack. In a black armored luxury car at the front of the line sat Dorian Vale, a 47-year-old billionaire tech mogul. Fair-skinned, salt-and-pepper hair, dressed impeccably in a charcoal gray suit, he had eyes as cold as the titanium on his watch. Yet something in Lena's determined, tearful expression broke through his emotional firewall. He lowered the window. "Why are you crying, girl?" he asked. She looked up, startled, wiping her cheek. "I just need $5, sir. For medicine, just 5. Dorian's mind raced back 2 decades, to his own childhood in the poor districts of Southport. His mother had died of untreated pneumonia when he was Lena's age. He'd sworn never to be poor again, and he wasn't. He had everything, but no one. The light turned green, the line moved, yet he didn't press the gas. "Where's your mother now?" he asked, voice gravelly. Lena hesitated, then pointed to a narrow alley beyond the nearby shops. "In there, she's real sick." Dorian pulled to the side of the road and stepped out, something he hadn't done on a street like this in years. Lena led him through a maze of alleys behind a bakery, where flies buzzed and steam rose from trash cans. They reached a crumbling shack made of corrugated metal and salvaged wood. Inside, on a stained mattress, lay Mira, Lena's 35-year-old mother. Pale brown skin, gaunt cheeks and sunken eyes that flickered with fever. Dorian stood stunned. He'd seen poverty on spreadsheets, funded aid campaigns in third-world countries. But this was just 4 miles from his penthouse. "She needs antibiotics," Lena said quietly. "But the clinic wants cash." Mira looked at him, lips trembling. "We don't take charity," she whispered. "You're not," he said. "You're getting help." Minutes later, Dorian sat in the back of a rickety taxi with Lena beside him, clutching the prescription from the local clinic. Her hands trembled on her lap. "You didn't have to do this," she murmured. "I did," Dorian replied. "You reminded me of someone." At the pharmacy, the cashier blinked when Dorian handed her a platinum card. "You sure this is for that address?" He nodded. When they returned, Mira was still conscious, and with the medicine in hand he helped Lena give her mother the first dose. It was the first time he'd touched another human being in months. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Lena offered Dorian the last piece of dry bread they had. He declined, but her insistence softened him. He sat on an overturned bucket, eating a tiny corner of bread in silence with them. It was the first meal he'd shared with anyone without business involved in over 10 years. He watched Lena smile faintly at her mother, and Myra's eyes began to stay open longer. "I don't know what to say," Mira said. "You don't have to," Dorian replied. "Just get better." That night, Dorian returned to his penthouse, but sleep didn't come. His bed, king-sized, imported Italian sheets, felt colder than usual. He kept seeing Lena's tear-streaked face, her bare feet on the hot pavement, her small hands trembling as she handed her mother the medicine. He stared at the city skyline outside his window, but all he could see was the dim flicker of a candle in a tin shack. He'd spent millions on ventures that added digits to his net worth but had done little to change lives. This one act, buying antibiotics and sharing bread, had left a dent in his soul, a meaningful one. By sunrise, Dorian was dressed and waiting in his private garage, not for a driver, but behind the wheel himself. The streets were quiet, and with each block the glossy towers gave way to crumbling walls and faded signage. He parked discreetly and walked the final stretch to Lena's alleyway. She was already awake, rinsing out a cloth in a small plastic tub. Her eyes widened at the sight of him. "You came back," she said, unsure whether to smile or be afraid. "I told you," he said calmly. "I have work to do, and so do you." Dorian knelt beside Lena, his expensive suit already smudged from the damp ground. He handed her a sandwich from the corner bakery and watched her devour it with shaking hands. "I have a proposal," he said. "I want to help you, not just today but for real. School, food, doctors, a new life. For you and your mother." Lena blinked, unsure if she'd misheard. "But why?" she whispered. "Because someone should have helped me once," he replied. "No one did. I swore I'd never look back, but maybe I was wrong." Lena's small voice asked, "Can you really fix her?" "I'll try," he said softly. "That's a promise." Mira was skeptical when Dorian explained his intentions. Her voice, though weak, carried defiance. "I don't want my daughter to be your charity project," she said. "We're not animals to be rescued." Dorian understood. He had once felt that same burning pride in the face of pity. "I'm not here to feel better about myself," he said. I'm here because your daughter has more courage than anyone I know, because she deserves more than this street can offer." After a long silence, Mira turned her face toward Lena. "If it means she won't be wiping windows for coins, maybe it's time." Dorian arranged for a private nurse to begin treating Mira immediately. He relocated them to a modest but clean apartment in a nearby district, small but safe and well kept. Lena marveled at the running water, the microwave, and the fact that their door had an actual lock. For the first time, she slept in a real bed. That night, Dorian stood at the window of their new place, quietly watching as Lena helped her mother sip warm broth. Her joy was quiet but deep. This wasn't a business deal, it was something else entirely. Something he hadn't felt in decades: purpose. News of Dorian's strange act spread quickly within his company. His board members were confused and not pleased. "You gave a sick woman and her kid a place to live," one of them asked incredulously. "That's not your job, Dorian." "No," he replied. "It's my choice," they whispered behind closed doors, thinking he was cracking. But he didn't care. He stopped attending cocktail parties, skipped interviews. Instead, he spent his evenings helping Lena with her reading and visiting Mira, who was finally beginning to eat again. The world questioned his sanity. For once, he didn't mind. Lena's first day at school was both terrifying and magical. Her new backpack was twice her size. Her uniform was too big, but she wore it like armor. She clutched Dorian's hand tightly outside the gates. "What if they don't like me?" she asked. He knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "Then they're fools, just be you." Inside, she stumbled over her name during roll call, but she read aloud with the confidence of someone who had fought battles far bigger than homework. Dorian waited outside the school gate all afternoon, feeling more nervous than at any board meeting he'd ever attended. Weeks turned into months. Mira slowly regained her strength, even walking around the neighborhood on warm afternoons. Lena blossomed. She now laughed, an open, unguarded laugh Dorian had never heard before. She told jokes over dinner, played music too loudly, and asked hundreds of questions. Dorian, in turn, became something he never planned on. A fixture in their lives. He wasn't her father. He didn't try to be. But when Lena ran to him with her report card, or Mira sent him away with leftovers, he realized this might be what a family feels like. But not everything stayed perfect. One night, Dorian received a letter from his estranged sister, someone he hadn't seen since their mother died. She'd read about him adopting a street child in the tabloids and demanded answers. "You were never there for your own blood," the letter accused. "Why her? Why now?" The words cut deep. That night, Dorian sat alone, turning the letter over in his hand. He could feel the old guilt rising, threatening to ruin everything he was building. But when Lena called out, "Come see my drawing," he folded the letter and threw it away. He was done with ghosts. Just as life seemed stable, Mira collapsed again. The fever returned, stronger than before. Dorian rushed her to a private hospital this time. Lena cried in his arms, shaking with fear. "You said she'd be okay," she sobbed. "I did," he whispered, fighting panic. "And I still believe it." He stayed by Myra's bedside through the night, watching monitors beep and doctors whisper. For the first time since childhood, he found himself praying, not for business success, not for profits, but for one woman to breathe freely again. This time he had too much to lose. For days, Mira lay in the hospital, caught between fevered unconsciousness and brief moments of lucidity. Dorian spared no expense. Specialists, advanced treatments, around-the-clock care. But none of that guaranteed miracles. Lena barely left her side, curled up on a visitor's chair with a blanket too thin for comfort. Dorian stayed too, ignoring the calls piling up on his phone. At one point, Mira opened her eyes, barely able to speak. She looked at Dorian and whispered, "Don't let her lose her light." He reached for her frail hand, voice shaking. "She's already brought it into my life." Mira closed her eyes again, as if finally able to rest. One morning, Lena woke to the sound of her mother's voice, not weak but clear. "Mira?" she gasped, jumping up. Dorian, asleep on a chair, startled awake too. Mira was sitting up, color returning to her face, her fingers slowly flexing. The worst had passed. Tears filled Lena's eyes as she embraced her mother, trembling with relief. Dorian stood quietly, overwhelmed. "You saved us," Mira said, voice rough but sincere. "No," Dorian said, "you saved me. You and your daughter reminded me what life is supposed to be. It wasn't just recovery, it was rebirth for all three of them." Weeks later, on a quiet weekend morning, Dorian took Lena and Mira out to a peaceful seaside park. He brought no assistants, no cameras, just a picnic basket and folding chairs. They laughed, shared stories, and watched ships on the horizon. "I used to think I was alone," Lena said, chewing on a sandwich. "Now I feel like I have two homes." Dorian smiled. "Well, this one's always open." Mira leaned back, stronger now, watching her daughter run barefoot in the grass. "You gave her that," she said to Dorian. He shook his head. "She gave it to me first." Months turned into a year. Lena, now fluent in her studies and confident in her voice, started a school initiative to help other children in need. With Dorian's support, she created a foundation, the Second Chance Project. Mira became a counselor at a local women's shelter. Her quiet strength gave others hope. Dorian reduced his business hours and gave up the boardroom battles. Instead, he became a mentor to kids with no fathers, no direction. Kids like he once was. He was no longer just a billionaire. He was something better, a man finally at peace with his past. On the anniversary of the day they met, Lena handed Dorian a hand-drawn card. On it was a sketch of a car window and a girl wiping it. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for seeing me." Dorian smiled, unable to speak. The memory of that moment, the desperate girl at the traffic light, felt like another lifetime. They had saved each other in ways no one else could understand. As the sun dipped low, the three of them stood hand in hand watching the golden horizon. Because sometimes it doesn't take an empire to change a life. Just one person who cares enough to stop. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of kindness.